Here we are.
Yeah, welcome back. We missed a week. It's been a busy week. MotoGP, we were in Hungary, Balaton's World Circuit. I have a connection to Balaton.
Oh,
When I was in the Army, my big deployment was Bosnia, and our R&R was to go to Lake Balaton for a week. And so I was there before the racetrack was built, and it is a lovely part of the world. But what did you think of the racing?
was the racetrack boring back then too?
I don't think the racetrack was there.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think it's the largest freshwater lake in all of Europe. That's at least what they told us, Stan. I don't know if it's true.
Potentially true facts by Dave.
Potentially true fact. Somebody told me, I remembered it that way, and I have no idea if it's true or not.
What was almost unfortunate was all of the journalists ahead of the race event, and some of the riders, but probably not as much because they have to be more careful, were very much panning the event and, oh, it's a go-kart track. It's going to be terrible for MotoGP. It's not really fit for these types of bikes. I'm actually kind of irritated that so many journalists did that, because it sort of set the expectation very low. And then you were almost going into the event looking for why it wasn't a good enough track or why it wasn't a good enough event. And I think a lot of the journalists did a disservice to the events and to the organizers because of that. That's not to say that I think it was a fantastic event, but I think when you set the expectation so low from the get-go, you kind of spoil it for some folks, which I was kind of frustrated with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my big fear about the track came true in the main race when Bastianini cracked in the first gear chicane, and I hate chicanes. And of course, he slid right into traffic. And I think that was a lot of people's concerns. Now, that aside, I love when MotoGP goes to a new track, because talk about leveling the playing field. Yeah. And we saw a lot of interesting things, not least of which is freaking Bez is still exceeding expectations. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been a track that should have suited him so well, I don't think. On the chicane part, I want to talk about this before I forget.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about the chicane.
What was so funny was this past weekend, I went to my sister's house. So I was playing MotoGP 2025 with my nephews on the video game. And of course, I was like, well, let's go to Balaton Park. I've never seen it before. And we went there and we tried to do, now we had done laps at Phillip Island, and we went to Austin and a couple other places. And then we went to Balaton Park, and we all struggled to do laps at Balaton Park. It is a very difficult track.
There's no place where you get into top gear, is there?
There definitely wasn't on the video game for us, but it is so hard to judge the corners because so many of them are so like, as soon as you accelerate, you're right back on the brakes hard again. You never really get going. And all of the chicanes, which I didn't realize this as much watching the race, but I did once we were playing the game, most of the chicanes are more than 90 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Which is really, so you wouldn't think that would make all the difference, but that seems to make all the difference because you're sort of over slowing everything to cut back and then cut back again. And I think that's where the track really struggles, is the designer of it made all of these chicanes just that little bit too tight that you can't flow anything and you can't set up a late entrance for a better exit or anything. And so that was exactly what happened to Bastianini. Was he went into that first one, which is just a bit too tight, tucked the front, and on the video replay, you watch the slow-mo. As soon as he tucked it and realized where he was going, he's immediately looking behind him at the riders behind him, praying that they can avoid him because he knows exactly what's coming.
And who was it? Who almost hit him? Was it Ender that did a really good job of avoiding him?
I forget if it was one of the other KTMs or not, but yeah, so there was a couple of riders that did a good job of evading and getting around him, which thankfully everyone kind of came out okay.
I guess you're going slow enough, but it's
still scary. It's a scary thing. But so it made for I think the sprint race was the worst because there was basically zero passing in the sprint race. The GP race was a bit better, but still a very predictable outcome with Marquez winning everything. But the thing I don't think gets enough credit was I thought it was a fantastic track for Moto2 and Moto3. If you haven't watched the Moto2 and Moto3 races from Hungary, you've got to go back and watch them. They're some of the best of the season. And in fact, I'd argue that the Moto2 race was the best race, full stop, of the whole season.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, it was... I'm not spoiling it at this point. It's too late now, but it also highlighted, I think Davide Alonso, I've said this since he was in Moto3 last year when he won everything and dominated. He's the next special Acosta Marquez. He's the next guy that. I'm not going to say he's the next Marquez because that's unfair, but he's that category of a rider. He is something special. This is his first year Moto2. He came through the field and won it on the last lap like he had it planned all along.
No kidding.
It was a beautiful race to watch, extremely well thought out, and just shows how special he is. My other favorite statistic that came of this, Marc Marquez, so of active riders across all three categories, Marc Marquez has the most wins with 98 total. Then Bez has 40. Vinales has 26 or something along that line. I think fourth or fifth is Davide Alonso.
Oh, no kidding.
On 19 wins.
Really?
Yeah, this is his first year Moto2. He's only got one win in Moto2. So most of these have come from Moto3. But I think I think when he gets to GP, he will be a truly special rider.
They're already talking, like a bunch of teams are already courting.
He is special. Yeah, I'm very excited for Davide Alonso. So that's my take on Hungary.
Yeah.
Anything else that came away?
Well, I was surprised they went to this track because Formula One goes to Hungary, and it's a bigger a Formula One track. I was surprised they went here and not to the bigger track,
the other location,
because this is a little track. It was because so many of the corners looked the same. It was hard to really understand the race from a spectator on TV, right? It didn't have any of, when you have the big fast flowing sections like Coda has it, like whatever those turns along the back are with the flag. And then you have Silverstone with like Maggots and Beckett's and everybody knows those names. You watching it, you kind of know where you are. You're like Phillip Island is the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
And this track didn't, like, everything looked exactly the same to me. And it was hard to watch. I'm going to be curious to see if they go back there.
It's interesting. They'll definitely go back. I think the contract's written already at this point.
Oh, okay.
They'll definitely go back. It is tough, and this is going to make us sound old, but for sure the tracks that are designed in the computer, they just lack a little bit of character. I think the people who designed the Austin track did a fantastic job of making it unique with the terrain that they have, because there are some sections on there that don't look like any other section on any other racetrack. But yeah, for the most part, these more modern ones they're a little cookie cutter. They're not as exciting to watch.
Yeah, I read an article in a magazine eons ago, probably in the 80s or 90s, where they interviewed the dude who cut Laguna Seca. And he was talking about how he was cutting the corkscrew. And that wasn't exactly how it planned, because as he was going over the hill and down, the tractor started to slide sideways because it was so steep, and then came around. And that's part of why the corkscrew is shaped the way it is, because the dude and going back to like before computer-aided design, like now that would never happen, right? That it would...
Oh, they would have mapped out the grade ahead of time.
Yeah, everything about it. It wouldn't have been a guy with a tractor just like letting it loop. Yeah. We'll pave this eventually. So I think there might be something to that, right? That the roads I enjoy the most are the roads that come from old logging roads and old, farm roads, not...
Well, or they follow an old river way, and it just kind of meanders with nature in the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's less predictable, it's less engineered, it's less designed, it's far more engaging.
Yeah.
As opposed to a road where every corner is perfectly graded and perfectly sloped for safety and semi-trucks and camper trailers, and you're just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so it probably didn't make for the most exciting racing. But since Hungary, I think we've pretty much got all of the silly season done and dusted at this point.
Right. But we still don't have final word on Jack.
Oh, so a couple of them are not officially announced yet, but the way it sounds, that's all coming maybe even this weekend at Catalonia. I hope the announcements.
Because they talked about Jack getting frustrated before the Hungary round, that he let other opportunities slip away.
Yeah.
Waiting for Yamaha. And don't let us down, Yamaha.
Yeah, I think, and even Quartararo was interviewed kind of backing up Jack of like, hey, nobody else on this team knows how a B4 is supposed to work. And this guy's ridden them all. So why would we not? Basically, why would we get rid of Jack? That seems crazy right now, when we need him more now than probably ever. So I think Jack's going to get the Pramac ride, which I think everyone will be happy with that. Diego Moreira is going to take Suncat Chantra's place on LCR. Morbidelli is probably going to stay. The Marini's got his contract. Zarco's got his contract. I think that's it. So yeah, it's basically done for this year.
Yeah, I'm surprised Marini's getting another.
Marini's the one who's replacing Chantra. Oh, sorry.
No, not Marini. I was thinking Morbidelli. Yeah.
I am surprised that, but I think it was also kind of I don't know the right way to say it, like a gap year. There wasn't a great young Italian to plug in. And
yeah, but that's, I think like the VR team wants Italian riders.
Yeah. And I think in the long term, I think that's actually going to hold them back. I think and not that they shouldn't try to promote riders from Italy. I think that's fine. But I think when you stick to it so rigidly, some sponsors are going to say no. Some, as Liberty Media takes over and starts to grow this thing globally, they're going to say, hey, I've got a whole bunch of other countries that aren't Italy and I need their riders in this series. Like, you've got to let us open this up a little bit. So I think long term that may end up holding them back if they're not careful.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody else is insisting on riders from a specific country.
Not quite like they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Inamitsu Honda, which was the other LCR seat, that was the situation, but they just dropped Chantra for Diego Moreira. So clearly not that rigid. So yeah, I think long term that's probably going to hold them back a little if they can't loosen that up a little and be a little more open-minded about it. But,
It's an interesting topic because you want riders from every country, right? Like, we desperately would love to have an American, like Brazil would love to have a Brazilian, like everybody wants to see their country represented. And the sport will do better when there is more representation globally.
Yeah.
And, but also you want the best talent.
Well, and that's the thing too, is the passport, your passport may get you the interview, but it won't get you the job, right? It might get you to the front door and they're like, well, I've got to consider him because of these other implications. But at the end of the day, the team has sponsors and has responsibility to get them airtime. And if you're back in 16th place, you're not getting much airtime.
Right.
So, the passport only gets you so far. You still have to be good. So, but that said, I think the Liberty Media thing's going to make a huge difference. I think it'll help a ton grow the sport. I even just heard, and I'm going to forget the actor's name, but they're apparently in talks with producing a MotoGP.
Oh yeah, there's a MotoGP movie coming. I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head either, but
you will all look it up on.
Yes, you'll have to tell me, because if we say the wrong thing,
I will be told about it. They will know that.
And we love that. We love that. It's part of it. Like, it's this is a team effort.
But I think that's a great sign. I would say that the movie coming out is more to do with the fact that Formula One, that movie was so successful. But it all is this kind of snowball effect. I think it's all going to help grow the sport.
And we know that motorcycles are way more exciting and engaging than cars. So, let's just hope they don't drop the ball on the screen.
What's speaking of the movies, I just saw a little, this, YouTube and whatever else feeds you little clips and snippets. I just had one of World's Fastest Indian, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of World's Fastest
Indian, that's where I was all last week when we didn't do a podcast. I was invited to go out and cover the Bonneville Motorcycle Speed Trials. And we live here in Utah, and Bonneville's been a part. Like, we drive by it all the time. And, but going in kind of where a journalist had on, I learned a lot of things about Bonneville Motorcycle Speed Trials, not least of which it is a single owner. It is owned by a substitute teacher in Oregon. She owns the whole event, and she puts it on basically herself with a team of like 60 volunteers on a shoestring budget. Puts on this world-class event. This AMA is there. It's an AMA event. It's an FIM event. So you can go for world records. It was...
well, you were there as a journalist on behalf of AMA.
Yes, AMA sent me there to do some stories. And so I'm not going to spoil those stories. You're going to have to get the magazine if you want to read those stories. But I will tease some of the people that I met and the stories that I'm going to be covering are really remarkable. The people who are still racing the Bonneville Motorcycle Speed Trials, these are really amazing people. So like, this is really interesting because Bonneville is the last world racing that is done entirely by amateurs. Now, the Indian team was out there and they were doing a whole documentary because they were doing some speed trials on their bagger class bike. But interesting. But the majority of the people out there are amateurs who are out there going faster than any human has ever gone before. And it's like the last of like true amateur racing. And it was, I will tell you that you don't really get to, it's not really a great spectator sport if you want to watch motorcycles go really fast, because for safety reasons, you're pretty far away from the track.
Well, I would assume you're sort of, if you're there near it, you're basically where it starts and then they go away from you.
Yeah, the real action is in the pits. And I think if you get a certain level of credential, you can go to the start line.
Okay.
And you can watch them, because to set a world record, you have to do it both directions within a certain amount of time. Right? Because you could have the wind pushing you, you need to do it the other way, and they do the average of the two. And conditions change constantly.
Out there, I'm sure that.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is the salt, because people are like, oh, well, heck, I have an S1000RR. It'll do 200 miles an hour for sure. No problem.
On the surface?
Yeah. But they don't realize that the salt A has absolutely no grip. It's pretty soft. And the salt effectively robs horsepower. The salt steals horsepower like crazy.
Yep.
So you're fighting wheel spin constantly. There's no grip. You're doing this wandery thing. There's no visual references, so you don't have any idea of speed or distance. You lose all sorts of depth perception out there. It's like riding on the surface of the moon. And so these people who are doing it, there's a lot that goes into getting a high-speed run. And they say all the time that a lot of people will show up on their S1000R, their Hayabusa, and they expect to walk home with the world record, and they'll be lucky to do 130 miles an hour on a Hayabusa, because that's how hard it is to ride on salt. It's a completely different skill. But to watch it, you don't really watch the race, but you get access to the pits like no other race event I have ever been to. Like, you're literally wandering through these pits, and if you're friendly and affable, pretty soon you're part of the story. Hey, will you hand me that 7/16?
Right.
And you're helping these people get their bikes prepped and ready. And amateur racing, like a lot of these bikes are built in sheds, and like over the course of the winter by a guy who's really good at welding, and a guy, his buddy's really good at this. And
well, and the most telling thing is that you just said, hey, hand me that 7/16. And I think a lot of
it's not metric.
Yeah, your rest viewers are what on earth?
Yeah. So one of the bikes that was there, it was it started life off as a monster. It was a Testa Stretta monster, right? But he wanted to stretch it and lengthen it and change the rate, because you're doing this. And the dude, like, if you're familiar with Ducati, they have a trellis frame that bolts to the front of the motor. The dude built his own. Like, he built his own, and it was gorgeous.
Man,
like hand welding, like the shapes of the triangles. And I was talking to him about it, and he goes, oh, I spent 6 hours just measuring and tacking and measuring and tacking and measuring and tacking and measuring and tacking to get all the thing right, so it could go over 200 miles an hour on the salt. It was really, really cool. And so here's the other thing too. Like, I'm kind of blabbering on about this because it was really interesting, because I didn't know this either. But apparently the salt is disappearing out there. So across the freeway, if you go south of I-80, they mine potash, and potash is used for fertilizer. And so what they've done is they've dug these trenches in the salt flats to collect the water off the salt flats to do whatever they're doing to mine potash. So when it rains or the snow melts or whatever, all the water goes into these ditches and it flows to wherever. Well, it's taking salt with it. And so the salt thickness where they race the bikes, they said several years ago it was half a foot, 6 to 8 inches thick. Now it's less than a centimeter thick. That's all that's left of the salt that's out there.
Really?
Yeah. So like the salt basically breaks and peels up, and then there's just clay underneath it. And so for the motorcycles, now it's really bumpy and ripply and I was talking to the owner and participation is down. Like people aren't going out to race on the salt flats like they used to. And it was kind of sobering for me because like Isle of Man, you kind of want to go see it before it's gone.
Yeah.
I think Bonneville's the same way. If you want to see the Bonneville Motorcycle Speed Trials, I think the window to go see it is limited.
It's funny you mentioned that because so I've lived here for almost 20 years now in Utah, and I've been doing motorcycles the whole time. And whenever I meet people from out of state and I say, oh, I race motorcycles at Utah, they immediately think, oh, salt flats, you must do speed racing. I have never been on the salt flats. I've never been out to watch the speed racing. It's just never been my thing. It would be interesting to go out and see this, but like some of these stories you've talked about, I love the idea of this sort of amateur builder or amateur participant who's like, yeah, I'll have a go. Like I could build one. I could figure this out. And just making it happen. And it reminds me of John Britton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When he built, hopefully you all are aware, but if you aren't, go look up John Britton and look up his mic and his story. But basically went and built this crazy bike that broke all the rules in a shed and went out and went racing with it. That's not really possible now at road racing, right?
Right.
You're not going to go build a GP competitor in your shed. That doesn't happen anymore. But I do love the sort of poeticness of the fact that there is a version of this somewhere still. And you were mentioning that there's all these different classes that they can go participate in, right? It isn't just, build the biggest, fastest, turboed, whatever, and go 400 miles an hour. There's all kinds of different things that people go do out there.
Right. So there's two different ways to kind of approach racing out there. And my bias was, I honestly wasn't that interested in the $1 million Streamliners. And they're out there, right? And they're chasing 400 miles an hour or whatever it is. That wasn't compelling to me. But what was compelling to me is, there's a class for everything and anything, from 50 cc's to all the way up, right? So one example is, you can shop for a race class. So if you want to go set a land speed record, you go through the classes and you shop it. I met one guy that him and his buddy, they met in a karate class. And like the story, right? Yeah, these two guys meet, and the guy's like, this one guy's like an old Army veteran, the other guy's like a tech guy. He touches computers for him, right? And he goes through the classes and he discovers that nobody's really doing anything with the electric motorcycles. So he gets a Zero and a sidecar, and he goes out and they do the sidecar, the electrics by weight. And they figure the battery and the whatever, they're not measuring the wattage of the motor or anything like that. But
So the classes is the weight.
it's based on weight. 300 kilos, I think, is what it was. And so he goes out with him and his buddy on the sidecar, under 300 kilos, and they went out there and they set all the records, right? Came home with a bunch of records. Then he went and he drove to Salt Lake and he bought a bunch of weight plates, right? Like for weightlifting, put it on the sidecar to get it over 300 kilos. Then he went out, settled the same world records, right? So then he goes, all right, now I'm going to take the sidecar off because he built it. The sidecar just comes off of the thing.
Yeah.
And he went out, set a bunch of world records. So he came home with like nine records, 9 speed records.
It looks like Michael Phelps.
Yeah, but all this because he shopped the class, and there's a lot of people that do that. They shop a class, but it was also incredibly competitive on, like the 90cc air cooled class, and it's all these like old school Hondas that they're out there and they're going, I'm gonna break 70. Like that's their goal, is to break 70, and they're just running back and forth, and there's all these different parameters and rules. And it was interesting. Like I was thinking, and I should ask you this, would you shop a class, or would you just find some random motorcycle that you love and think, I'm going to set a land speed record with my Gronk,
It's really interesting. I don't know that I would go shop a class just for this. And I don't want to diminish it, because to somebody this meant the world.
Right. Yeah. We all ride for different reasons. I don't think there's any right or wrong on this.
I don't think I would go shop a class just to get a medal. I've raced road racing for years. I don't need a medal. Like, that's not why I do it. I would be fascinated to especially to take a bike that you already own and just see, your exact, first example of go get your BMW S1000 and how fast does it actually go? And then find out that, oh, it's actually pretty damn hard to make this thing go on this salt. I think that would be the more appealing thing to me, is just take what I've already got and just see what it does. I am sort of curious. I don't think I realized how it makes sense. I just never thought about it, how difficult it would be to ride on the salt when there's no grip or traction at all.
Yeah. And aerodynamics plays into it, right? And it was nice because going back to like the mechanics too, like some of these bikes that roll up, right? I met one guy, he was a fan of the channel. He recognized me and we did a selfie and everything like that. But the front half of his motorcycle was, I think, like an XR 650. Okay. The back of it looked like a bunch of I-beams bolted to the back half of the frame to make it into a streamliner, right? And so, like,
I like this little crowd that you've...
No, it was absolutely incredible, right? And it's like, it looks a little like battle worn and the paint's chipped off and you can tell he works on it all the time. And it's like everything's like well maintained and kind of put together, but it's used in a really hard environment. And he goes out and does it. And then this other dude, he had a Yamaha 650 Special. And when he bought it, his wife said, that looks like a mistake, right? And then his wife passed away. And so he turned it into like a stretch, and he named it the Perfect Mistake out of an honor for his life kind of a thing. And it's this old Exis 650 Special, and it's 9 feet long, and it's like the hand-hammered aluminum tank that he made in his shed, kind of a thing. And it's so cool to think that, like, I tell you, the guy in Yamaha who put that Yamaha 650 Special together in 1978 or whatever and sent it down the assembly line, he probably never thought that bike would go on to set land speed records at Bonneville. And it was absolutely...
I'm sure as a roll of he's like, I bet that turns into Mad Max's next ride. I bet that's what this turns into.
Well, and it reminded me of more than anything else of Mad Max, right? Like kind of these like, we're going to put something together with what we have and build the thing that should never exist. And some of them are a little rough looking, but there's a level of beauty to all of them. Like, like lowering the tank. I like doing these things and, super cool.
Is there... What's funny is there's all these, I don't want to be harsh to anybody, but there's all these sort of Instagram hipsters who make cafe racers in their shed and they make little slow motion edits of like grinding, and they're wearing like skinny black jeans with torn up knees and their ears and all this. And they're trying to look a certain way and be a certain image. But then these people are who they're trying to be the whole time.
Right. And I would say to that hipster, because those edits are fun. I watch. Oh, sure. I totally enjoy them. But I think they might absolutely love the idea of going out to Bonneville. I met one woman who was like, she's like, well, I don't ride on the street. The bike doesn't run all year. So like, why bother? So I brought it here to get it running. And I kept like checking in with her like over the 5-6 days. Like, is it running yet? And she's like, no, I'm having this problem. And no, I'm having this problem. And then she got it running by like the 3rd or 4th day and went out and like beat all of her own records, and she's, like with this old Honda CB500 from like the late 70s. It was
so if you're a wannabe hipster that wants to build bikes in your shed, when you bought your first MIG welder, go up to the Bonneville.
No, I see every place you go out to the Bonneville, it's dying. Right. Like this is going away. The popularity of it is waning.
Yeah.
It's like Isle of Man in that it's not going to be around forever. Yeah. I think some of the salt people are saying within 10 years, there won't be enough salt out there to race anymore. So like make a point to go see the Bonneville Motorcycle.
It is sort of a shame to think about that we're kind of destroying maybe the even option to do this, right? Because this thing, just like all things, kind of ebbs and flows, right? There's times when this is really popular and times when it's not. It'll be popular again at some point.
I hope so.
But it's almost a shame to think that, we might be destroying the environment to the point where it's not an option.
Yeah, that the salt's gone. Like who would have thought that the salt would go away? Like the salt flats. It's unimaginable amount of salt that is like. And you go over, I went and drove past the potash plant where they're mining the potash, and there's just piles and piles of salt that they don't have any use for. So it's just sitting over there because it's too expensive to go put it back. And then if you put it back, like, does it go back into the, like, or does it just Rutman. I don't know. I don't know enough about these things.
If there's any geologists that watch your channel, we're going to find out.
I hope somebody knows more than I do about this, because it's a super cool event. And it really, I couldn't help but think, what would I build? Because my favorite bikes were the bikes that nobody ever imagined would be out there setting speed trials, right? There were a handful of super bikes. There were two 1950s Vincents out there.
Really?
Yeah, like, when have you ever seen a Vincent?
I've never actually seen one.
Yeah.
My whole life. Yeah.
And to hear them running at full tick in a high state of tune.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh. It is. I love V4s. I think the Vincent might sound better than a V4. It is a incredible sounding engine. There's something really different about the Vincent. But like, I just love that these things were out there and people were using them. There were like AJSs and like old British motorcycles you've never seen or you haven't seen in 30 years. And people are freaking racing them on the salt. Some dude found an old bull taco in a shed that had like 8 miles on it. Put it back together. And it was going there. Yeah, on a two-stroke Pol Taco dirt bike. And he's like, nobody has a record on one of these. I'm going to do a record. And it was cool. So yeah.
I like this sort of it's kind of like a bike show. You know, instead of a car show, it's like a bike show, but with a purpose. I like what's the pit atmosphere like with this group? I have a vision in my mind after how you're describing them. I hope it's accurate. I'd love to go hang out with these people.
Oh, it was what was really cool, and you talk to everybody and they would all tell you the same story, that, you know, they all know each other. They're all competing with each other. But if one's having a problem, like, so one story that came up more than once was that someone was struggling. They didn't have the right gearing, and so the engine was bogging. And so their competitor, the record they're trying to beat, would give them their sprocket, and they would take their competitor's sprocket and go beat their record with their sprocket. And then the person that would congratulate them, because as one person said, it's not like a race where you line up and all you have to do is be faster than the other guy, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, who you're racing is yourself, right? You're just trying to be quicker than you were last time. And yeah, you're trying to like beat the record and stuff like that. But almost everyone that I talked to, when I asked them, why the salt? Why do you want to be out here on the salt? They would all talk about, you're out there and it's the silence. It's this white. There's no perspective. It's almost like sensory deprivation.
Yep.
It almost gets quiet out there. It's just the sea of white. It's the silent. And it's just you and this thing that you've been building in your shed for 2 years. And here's where it all kind of culminates into this moment of like, you know, like living in the moment. Yeah, we all chase living in the moment, right? And they all talked about that.
I assume that there's quite a bit of safety precautions with a lot of these home-built machines, right? Was there a lot of incidents, or was it a fairly safe event all around?
I didn't see a single, well, I did see one fall. The guy did a U-turn and fell over.
I think you pass on that.
They have no steering.
Yeah.
He just tipped over.
1 mile.
So they don't call it tech. They call it scrutineering, which is a better term. I really like that they call it scrutineering. And you know, you had to go through like scrutineering before and after, and they're checking to making sure. And then if you beat a record, you had to take off the top of your engine. No, safety was pretty paramount. Even like with the big streamliners, they have like fire suppression systems built into them. And yeah, I didn't see any safety thing. I don't think anybody got hurt. I think someone a couple of years ago had a heart attack trying to kickstart his motorcycle, but EMTs are right there, you know, like, and, but yeah, it's a, from what I saw, it was a very safe event.
I'm fascinated by this whole thing. I'm also a little embarrassed. I've never been out to.
Sorry. You know, I went eons ago. I went to Speed Week, which is a different event. Speed Week is primarily cars. I didn't realize that Motorcycle Speed Trials, the one that is a different thing. It's motorcycle specific.
Right.
And I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And I loved the people. Like they are all like, who does this, right? I want to meet the person who wants to do this, right? They're interesting people.
See if one of the manufacturers will loan you a bike to go do it next year.
Yeah, you know, so Honda's sending me a Dax, right? Like that's the next one that's showing up. I really wish I would have had it. I would have taken the Dax out and do it at speech. I'd want it.
That white bike do you want Honda to send you next year to do the Speedway Cup?
I'll probably talk to Honda. I'll see if Honda will send me something like, Honda, what do you want me to do? Like, I help monkey
That, like, yeah. It's like 110 draw.
Well, the DAX is like a 110.
Oh, that's
Yeah, like it's retro. Looks like old CT70. Oh, yeah, no, if I would have been here, I totally would have taken it out. I like that. I mean, I don't think it shows up till tomorrow, though.
so. Bonneville's for going as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to go do it out there, and if you can't do it out there, you should go to the racetrack and do it.
Right.
This weekend we'll be out at the racetrack with Apex Track Days on the perimeter, which is full front straight,
Which is almost a mile.
over a kilometer long front straight. If you try to do this stuff on the street, who's going to catch you, Dave? I won't stop you.
This was the other thing that I just did. So we also, it been a busy week. And you are, like, I don't want to call you out, but you are the president of the Utah Sport Bike Association, which is our local motorcycle race club. And we have had this long-standing relationship with Utah Highway Patrol. And we've done several of these now where we get together with Highway Patrol, we invite them out to the racetrack, and we coach them on how to go faster on at high speed skills. And we did that also last week as well.
My favorite thing about the event is all of the photos from all the instructors that get posted on social media afterward of cops chasing them on their bikes.
Well, I'm not going to lie. It was a life highlight to come up the inside of a motor officer at 110 miles an hour in a corner and then bugger off into the distance and not have to worry about it legally.
No consequences.
No consequences.
So when you're out there with these, so this is part of the Utah Sport Bike Association. We do an ART program, Advanced Rider Training Program. This is a slightly different version because it's for the UHP specifically. You teach a lot of these arts. In fact, you teach a lot of motorcycle riding in general. What do you see when you do these UHP specific events that's unique about either the riders or what they already know? Like, how does this, from your perspective, feel different than the other events?
So there's something really cool about the UHP thing, in that, the very first one that we did it on their racetrack. They have their own like training track, and apparently it's really hard to get it now because to get access to it. That's why we bring them out to Utah Motorsports campus to do it, UMC. When we first did it, there was a lot of, from the officers, there was a lot of, I can't learn anything from you. I'm faster than you. I have all this training. And I remember being out there with them, and they were on the BMW RTs, and it was an uphill over crest corner, and they were super aggressive with the throttle, and he would just get on the gas and huck the thing over, and the engine case is just bouncing off the ground. And I'm watching him. I'm literally one hand on the handlebar. It's not even fast for me. And I'm like, this guy's going to die because he's going so hard and so aggressive. That was the very first course, and it was wildly successful. We taught him a bunch of things. They came on with like, I had no idea. The officers were like, I thought I was quick. I had no idea. I didn't realize I could be faster, more precise, and safer. Now, that was several years ago. This class, apparently they integrated a lot of the things we taught early on into their initial program. So all of this group of students were already so much further ahead because they're now covering the front rate. They're now slowing until they get direction. They're doing all of these things that they weren't doing before.
Yeah.
And you could see, like, right off the bat, these guys were far more proficient than they used to be. But it was still super cool to like take it to the next level and be like, look, guys, no, wait.
Yeah.
Like, you're in a pursuit situation. Like, don't be greedy with the throttle. Don't try to be so aggressive with, like, wait till you get direct and just see, like, all of them like, oh my gosh, I'm so much faster. So I'm getting them thinking about apexes and really thinking about the last 5% of their brake control. And like, they progress really, really quickly at that level.
I think so. The first event we did years ago, I was at that one. I taught at that one. And I remember being in the room, and I can't remember if it was you or who asked it. And said, what tire pressures are you guys running? And it was crickets, and it was looking around at each other. none of them had a clue what pressure they had. And it was like, and then somebody had asked me, because I was like the one racer that was at the training thing. And I said, how often do you check your pressures? And I was like, every single time. And I'm checking them within half a pound. Like I always know what my pressures are. It makes all the difference. And we took a tire gauge and went out to the bikes. They were, I think the range was almost 20 pounds from the lowest to the highest of all their tire. And none of them had a clue. And it was, and I'm not trying to like bash them, but it was just like, they didn't even know that mattered as much. Because if you come from a car, it doesn't matter as much. So it was so much base level knowledge that they had to get. But it sounds like this latest group is a lot of that.
Very anxious about their tire pressure, as it turned out.
Good.
So I think one thing that a lot of people may not realize about motor officers is that, the comment I get a lot on the YouTube channel is that these are professional riders. They're the best riders in the world. They're highly trained. And to a certain extent they are. But also most of these they don't ride in their spare time. This is their job. And a lot of them only do it for 2 or 3 years. And a lot of them are only doing it for promotion points to get to sergeant or to detective. They're not passionate motorcycle. Like some of them obviously are, right? Like just like the rest of us.
Yep.
But for a big swath of them, this is just a thing they do for a couple of years. It's not a lifelong thing. And so they don't have, for good and for bad, they don't have a base of knowledge before they come in. And for good or for bad, they're not really looking longevity. They're not thinking, I'm going to be doing this for 20 years. Now, obviously some do. They start riding and they fall in love with it and they buy a motorcycle and they ride it. But of the officers we taught last week, I think only 2 of them rode in their personal lives out of, I think, 25 officers that we taught.
And they're all on BMW
RTs. Yeah.
Is that the 1200?
I think they're 1250s now.
Is it air cooled?
Yeah, they're air oil cooled. I think next year they're getting the 1300s. They're going to start getting the new Advancio 1300s. And we should say too, these dudes slay at cones. I don't know how they do what they do at cones, right? So there was always like a little bit of like good-natured jabbing back and forth,
I do remember the first one. It was, well, if we ever have to run away from you inside of a parking lot cone course, you got me. Like, I give up. You got me. But yeah, I think it's such a cool and a really unique relationship and event that we have. I'm not familiar with any other relationship quite like that in the whole US.
I think it's so positive on so many levels because on one hand, it's like an acknowledgement that, like what we do is very, we can do it quickly and safely. Like that's the joy of the racetrack, right? That there are ways to go faster with less risk and to get that acknowledgement, but also it humanizes us to them because I think the very first one that we taught, we're there on our super bikes with chamfered knee cuffs, and they're looking at us like we're nutters. They're looking at us like we're the enemy, right? Like we're the people that are running from them. And there's like, no, we're not. Yeah, we go here because like that's the better place to do that sort of thing. And it just kind of builds like a sense of community. And when everybody's skill is better, we all benefit, right? Like I was talking to one of the officers, and he said, he pulled over some kid in one of the canyons, and he goes, look. Yes, you were speeding, but also you're rushing your apex. You're artificially adding lean angle. Like I pulled you over for speeding, but if you keep doing these other things, you're going to fall and get hurt. And I don't want you to fall and get hurt. And think of how much better of a message that is than I'm tired of scraping you off the asphalt.
Oh, I really like that he had like a little Canyon Chaser Dave on his shoulder telling him, here's where you went wrong. Let me list the reasons why. Yeah.
Because I want everybody to ride better, right? Like, we get criticism on the channel because I don't ever intend to really address speeding directly, right? There's obviously excessive speed is bad, but like that's not, I just want people to not fall down.
Well, and if I love the idea of sort of the worlds colliding idea, right? Where you can take these people who are passionate about motorcycles and have made it a very big aspect of their lives and take it very seriously. And this group that is literally policing the behavior. and get them to kind of see each other as people. You know, that was one of the other takeaways was when I went and did the one with years ago. These are just people. They're just guys. This is their job. They didn't do this because they want to go stop everyone from having fun. It's like, no, I want to protect people. That's why I do this job. So I think the humanizing aspect of just getting the humans together for it, that alone is a huge benefit.
Right, because we both kind of see each other as adversaries, right? If you ride on the street, you don't want to get nicked.
Yep.
If you're a police officer, you're tired of the kids going excessively fast.
Yep. I think it's an awesome event. We'll continue doing it in the future. If we can keep these, if we can do something that helps these highway patrolmen be safer and, have a longer career and, avoid injury, all the better for everybody, I think.
Well, here's kind of the sobering thing too, right? There's motorcycle officers have accidents too.
Yeah.
And they are having big injury. They're getting hurt accidents in two places. Pursuits.
Yep.
Right. And, we can tell, like when we did the first school, do you remember we did a fake evasion thing? Do you remember this? Where, yeah, we would have one of them like fake pull us over and then we would fake evade.
Oh, I do
remember this?
Yes.
And like, I knew it was coming. I knew what was about to happen. But as soon as those sirens came on, the stress. Oh my gosh. Like, and I knew it was fake. There's still like the anxiety on making mistakes and stuff like that. So you have to think, even trained officers in a pursuit situation, the adrenaline's pumping, the anxiety's up, right? And so officers are getting hurt in that environment, right? And to learn how to control that and learn the techniques and the practice. The other place where officers are getting hurt is high speed, like escort situations where they have to like block traffic, accelerate out, stall, block traffic, that high acceleration, high pressure braking, stopping quickly kind of a thing. They're seeing a lot of officers crash because they don't have the braking skills. Like it's a completely different thing than like doing like little woobity doobities in the cones.
Are the RCs TeleLevers?
Yes. All BMWs are TeleLevers. Yeah.
No, not all BMWs. The S1000s.
Yeah, I think that's one of the rare ones. I think some of the small ones. All your big traditional BMWs are.
The Boxers are all TeleLevers.
Yeah. Yeah. And then their big touring bikes are using like a Hossack front end, which is TeleLever-esque, where these are systems that are designed to separate out suspension movement, steering movement, and braking movement. So it's a pretty clever system that where we're always talking about forks, where we go to the brakes, it compresses the forks, the trail changes, it helps the motorcycle change direction. TeleLever and Hossack front ends, they're effectively, in simplest terms, there really is no fork. It looks like if you were to take the front wheel on your car and take it off and put it on the front of your motorcycle with like the A-arm and the shock and steering linkage, that's basically how these things work. So when you go to the brakes, the fork doesn't compress, trail doesn't decrease, it actually increases. So the front ends of these bikes handle significantly different from a motorcycle.
You obviously still get weight transferring.
Yeah, you're still loading the front tire, but you're not controlling your geometry, right? So on your race bike or my Multistrada or my track bike, right? How much pressure I put on the brake lever, I can feel what I'm doing by how much and how quickly the dive is happening, right? I can feel the load through the fork travel. On a TeleLever front end, when you go to the front brake, it actually pushes back against you, right? So it'll, like when you're riding over bumps, and you can see it with GSs especially, right? They're incredibly capable off-road because like they're going off-road and you're getting this thing off-road and they really stay planted to the ground. But you're not collapsing the fork with the front brakes. You're not managing your geometry. So for these guys with the GSs and stuff like that, or GSs, the officers with the RTs or anybody who rides a TeleLever front end, they will talk about how there's a lack of feel, right? Because the brake lever doesn't control that dive. You can't feel the pressure you're putting into it. So it's a little harder of a thing to figure out how to manage grip on the front.
But while you're doing this coaching with them, knowing that they're all on these TeleLever front ends, do you coach them any differently?
Yeah, we had a big discussion before we started where we talk about like, we couldn't use we have like a whole section where we talk about 100 millimeters of travel on the fork, right? That we go to a certain level. We were talking about this on one of the last podcasts, cornering loads and braking loads and stuff like that. On a TeleLever, that all kind of gets put out the window, because going to the front brake doesn't help the motorcycle change direction. To a certain extent, it almost makes it harder to change direction. But speed still equals radius, and we still need to load the tire before we work the tire. But it's almost harder to do on a TeleLever because you can't tell how much weight has moved over the front tire, because you can't feel what the bike is doing and how it's pressing into it. So we kind of tweaked a lot of those things. But to be specific,
if I put you on one of these RTs, would you actually ride it or do inputs any differently than you normally?
No, I would ride it exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I would ride exactly the same, but I can tell you, having ridden them, it is really unnerving to, we're used to like trail braking into a corner and you add more front brake pressure and it pulls it, it tightens the radius. These don't always do that. And so you end up using the rear brake a little bit more, because the rear brake to help pull it around, to help, and almost all these BMWs have linked brakes, which it kind of does it for you. It's just a very, very different thing. It's very unique to BMW. And I think the Goldwing has it. I don't know.
The link brake, you mean?
No, the Hossack front end.
Okay.
Where trail increases under brake pressure. So it gets harder to change direction as the forks compress. I actually have a little video somewhere I can link to it where we slowed it down, bouncing on a TeleLever front end, and you can see the fork. I'll point right at the camera. Normally on a motorcycle, when you bounce down, the fork comes back. You can see the fork kind of as it compresses, it'll come back. On the BMW, when it compresses, it kicks the front tire out into the motorcycle. Yeah, it's one of the things I really love TeleLever, but I'm a little frustrated because with TeleLever, they could engineer it to do whatever they wanted to do. They could have engineered it so trail decreased. And
like a normal bike.
Like a normal motorcycle. And then it wouldn't be an issue. You would get all the benefits of TeleLever, which are like you can put everything you own on the motorcycle and it's going to handle exactly the same as it does unladen. But you still could have had control over the trail. I don't know why they insist on the trail kicking out when it compresses.
I already can't wait for the comments on how wrong you are about everything with TeleLever.
No, it's going to be interesting. People are passionate about TeleLever. Yeah. There's a lot of great things about TeleLever. I would own TeleLever. I really would.
Well, it was your, until you bought the Pikes Peak, it was in the running.
Oh yeah, the GS 1300 was my top contender until the Pikes Peak kind of fell in my lap.
Yeah.
But I was planning on getting a 1300 GS, so I had no hatred for TeleLever.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to understand the differences, because when you know how it works, when you understand the physics of it, you're going to be able to work with it to its advantage better.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware of anybody who's actively talking about how to ride TeleLever in this manner, like what it does under braking and how you can control the geometry and things like that.
It would probably be good to do something explaining that. It sounds like you already have one up.
I haven't. No, I keep hoping to get like a TeleLever, like a long-term review on a TeleLever.
Go you through a TeleLever.
In depth. Yeah, like
they're waiting on you.
Yeah, I really want to explain exactly how. So it's interesting. Like we're getting a little sidetracked here, but
this is all we do on this.
No, we do get sidetracked. But the guy Hossack, he's actually a guy, and I can't think of his first name right now. The guy who came up with this crazy front end that was separating steering from braking inputs on the front end of a motorcycle. He lives in England. He's still alive, and he has a YouTube channel. And he has all these videos of some of the first Hossack systems he built, and they reduced trail as they went to the brakes. They were these beautiful little hand welded trellis systems on the front end, and BMW basically took that idea and they're like, no, we think trail reducing is bad. And this is back in an era before cartridge forks. So we're dealing with damper rod forks, and the forks collapsing was a big problem.
We don't want it to.
Right. And so they would become unstable. We didn't understand as much about geometry and interesting now. But you can go watch the guy's YouTube channel about him building these Hossack front ends. And that's basically what the TeleLever and the Hossack systems are. Kind of best actually licensed to him. Finally, where TeleLever's kind of a little bit of a rip-off, the poor guy. But they're really clever. They are really, really clever. And they could be engineered, it could be a better system. And I wonder if TeleLever would have caught on if how we ride motorcycles would have evolved completely differently. because TeleLever, you have so much more control over what the front of the bike does. But we all went with cartridge forks because they were cheaper, and how we ride a motorcycle has evolved completely around the cartridge fork.
Yeah, you brought this idea up before of, do we ride the way we do because of the equipment that is available, basically, or is this the best way to ride something with two wheels, and the equipment's built around that concept? I think this is a fascinating idea. I like thought exercise.
It is and I wish I knew the answer, because I think about it all the time, right? Because when trail braking was introduced to me, I came from a generation where you never brake on a corner, and it was really hard for me to get a hold of it. And once you did, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. But is it better because
that's what the equipment wants you to do or allows you to do?
Right. And now I think motorcycles are being engineered around that.
Yeah.
Whereas if they were engineered around a different front end, would they have evolved completely differently?
There was a fascinating one. I forget the name of it. It was years ago, like 15 years ago. And it was Australian, I want to say. And it was, this guy was basically making these sport bikes that instead of sitting on top of them like we do with a modern bike, the frame was engineered that you basically, where you sat, it was not quite a cruiser or a scooter, but
like a recumbent.
It was more in that vein of you're very much down and in the thing versus on top of the thing. And it very much obviously changed everything about how you move and everything. But it's like, and I remember looking at that in a magazine or whatever years ago and thinking, what a goofy, weird idea. But had that been the norm, I'd look at one of these and be like, what a goofy, weird idea.
Yeah, like you're sitting up on top of these things.
Yeah.
Right? It is kind of weird. You'd think of the weight transfer, especially on the bikes I enjoy, the adventure bikes, like the amount of weight.
Big, tall. Yeah.
They're kind of like goofy, as opposed to like, I'm sure people on, you're thinking about it right now, the Akira motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
The Akira motorcycle, when I was a kid and I first saw Akira, I'm like, that's the future. We are all going to be riding Akira motorcycles, right? Like recumbents.
Yep.
And I think Honda made one that was kind of close a couple years ago that was pretty cool, but it didn't catch on. And you can kind of see the advantages of a recumbent style motorcycle. It's more of like you're sitting in kind of a chair. It's a little bit, as opposed to like this like whole like fetal position on top of the motorcycle, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always fascinated me.
Maybe you can build one and go to Speed Week.
Yeah. Get a Akira motorcycle and go to Ski Week. I think we might have a plan. We just need the resources. It could be really cool. Just Speed Week, a recumbent motorcycle.
Awesome. I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, I think that was a really good episode. Let us know what you thought. Leave us comments on what we got wrong. We do read them, I promise.
Yep.
And we do really appreciate your feedback. We really do. We do this for you. We love the engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we've got you on Dave.
I'm Brian.
And thanks so much for hanging out in the garage with us today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.